Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally time. The movie I have spent years waiting for is finally upon us. Yes, that's right. It is finally time for James Gunn's Superman, which I will finally be seeing in a couple days. And I want to do a review for the movie, but before I go and actually see it, I want to just give some of my last minute thoughts before watching it. To be frank, I am scared for this movie. It seems pretty widely understood at this point that there is a lot riding on this movie. Superman is going to be the start of a whole new brand new DC universe and a whole brand new run of movies. And if it flops, we're probably never going to get an actual DC universe on film. And if it sucks, I don't know what I personally am going to do, because as a diehard DC fan, I can't take any more bad movies. Whether you loved it or hate it, I think it's pretty inarguable that the DCEU had a lot of problems. One of which was Superman. Now don't get me wrong, Henry Cavill was great in the role, but it just wasn't the Superman that I and a lot of people really wanted to see. But I don't need to belabor that point. Superman as a character is arguably the most important superhero ever. He's where it all began. And while he's not my favorite superhero ever, that would be Batman of course, Superman is undeniably important to the fabric of superheroes and where they are today. I've been a Superman fan for a long time, and more broadly speaking, I've always been a DC guy over a Marvel guy. Not that I don't like Marvel, I love Marvel, but I've always just preferred DC and its cast of characters. So for me personally, I really need this movie to be good and successful and do well and hopefully kickstart a whole line of movies and characters, and just it needs to succeed, or I don't know if my heart can take it. Now thankfully at the time of recording this, the reviews for Superman are mostly positive, and it seems to be doing pretty well at the box office, at least in its opening day. But it's not quite the runaway success I think everybody was hoping it would be. There's definitely a little bit of criticism out there for the movie, and I'm not talking about the Snyderverse losers who were never going to like the movie to begin with. And I'm also not talking about these right-wing idiots who are hating on the movie without even seeing it because suddenly it's a revelation to them that Superman is a literal fucking refugee from another planet. I can't believe these Fox News jerk-offs were trying to act like Superman was going to be a woke movie because it painted him as an immigrant. He's not from here. He comes from out there in space. He's literally an immigrant to Earth. How do these fucking people not get that? No, in terms of criticism, I mean people who seem to have some valid critiques of the movie. For what it's worth, Angry Joe is a die-hard, lifelong Superman fan, and he didn't really care for the movie all that much. Dan Murrell's a film critic who I've liked for a long time, and he wasn't too hot on it either. So I don't know, even though it's reviewing overall pretty good, there seems to be some amount of criticism out there from, you know, more well-balanced, rational people. So I don't know. I am nervous, and I hope it's good. And if not, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do with myself. They deserve better. And I truly, truly hope that James Gunn's Superman is the start of something amazing and good and serves this universe and its characters well. So I don't know. So I am hopeful. I hope the movie's great. Like I said, I'm seeing the movie in a couple days, so I guess we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed that it's great.
A few moments later.
Holy shit, they did it. James Gunn's Superman is fucking great. This is the Superman movie I have wanted my entire freaking life, and it's so good to finally have it. I'm so glad that the concerns and worries I had going into this movie have been completely washed away, and all the hopes and expectations I had for it were just met. It was amazing. Now, right off the rip, I'll say it's not a perfect movie. It definitely has some, you know, things to nitpick here and there, but overall, it just hits the mark so spot on. The tone of the movie is great. The new universe it establishes is awesome. I thought this was maybe going to be a little overpacked with too many characters, but the Justice Gang is awesome, and watching this movie feels like watching an episode of Superman the Animated Series, or more specifically Justice League Unlimited with all the side characters. And like the animated DC universe, this new DC universe they're setting up is just so, it's got such a good tone. It's bright and colorful, and you know, there's charm to it, and there's humor, but there's also moments of sincerity and emotion and weight. It's such a good tone. It doesn't have all the angsty bullshit that was in the previous universe. And walking out of this theater, I could not stop smiling just the entire time afterwards. It was so nice to finally walk out of a DC movie and be happy for once. Now, it's not that there weren't DC movies I liked in the past. I really liked Wonder Woman and Shazam, Aquaman, James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Those movies were great. They were a lot of fun. But there was always this kind of caveat of like, oh, this movie was really good, or this movie was a lot of fun, but it's surrounded by this universe of all this confusing shit and, you know, things that don't make sense, or movies that aren't very good, or, you know, are we ever gonna get Henry Cavill back as Superman? You know, it was all this weird fucking nonsense that surrounded some of the better movies in the DCEU. But to finally walk out of one and have what feels like a general consensus being of like, oh, this was great, you know, people liked this and were happy about this, and it's oops, my computer turned off. Anyways, it's just so nice to finally walk out of a DC movie to have people excited about this universe and these characters and wanting to see more. And it was such a fun movie-going experience. I would also argue that the movie is perfectly cast. This guy right here, David Cornsweet, this guy is Superman. He does such an excellent job of humanizing Superman, and paired with the fact that we see Superman get his ass kicked a lot in this movie, it really humanizes him, and again reminds me of the animated series Superman, where he's not this omnipotent, all-powerful god. He can be hurt, he can be weakened by things, you know, he's not this godlike figure. And they play up the human aspect of Superman, the Clark Kent aspect, not the Kal-El, I'm an alien and, you know, in a strange world and all this stuff. He is a Kryptonian, he is an alien, but at his core, he's human. He's just a guy from Kansas trying to do the right thing, and that's what makes Superman so endearing and works so well. And Cornsweet's performance is great. The fact that he doesn't really swear and he lets out cheesy things like golly and gee whiz. I don't think he actually says gee whiz, but you know what I mean. There's like a golly in there somewhere, and a, you know, what the hey dude instead of a what the hell. It's just such a charming Boy Scout Superman that, you know, is what Superman should be, not some brooding, angsty, you know, constantly depressed. Leave that shit for Batman. That's, you know, Batman's game. That's not Superman's game. And the rest of the cast is excellent too. Rachel Brosnahan is great as Lois. Her and Clark together are just so pitch perfect. Their chemistry is awesome. And the way they love each other, but the way that Lois also challenges Superman, especially in their interview together, is just fantastic to see. Nicholas Hoult is awesome as Lex Luthor, just chewing scenery, and he's such a smarmy little shit bad guy at times that you just want to fucking punch him in the face. But he's still threatening and conniving and knows what he's doing and knows how to get at Superman and attack Superman. And beyond those central three characters, everybody else is great too. The Justice Gang is awesome. Mr. Terrific was definitely a show stealer. Isabella Mercedes Hawkgirl was great. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner is such a lovable douche, and it's just so nice finally seeing a Green Lantern on screen doing things that's not some weird cameo like in Justice League, and it's not some lame Ryan Reynolds, you know, movie. It's like, it dawned on me watching this part of the way through where it's like, oh, I'm watching Green Lantern in a superhero movie, and it's awesome and it's working and it's cool. It's just, it was so good to see that finally. And everybody on kind of the more tertiary level of the cast is great. Everybody at the Daily Planet is awesome and just like their comic counterparts, and none of them are overused too much. They all get their little moments to shine. Jimmy Olsen in specific is hilarious and great. I hope we see more of him in future Superman stuff. And Lex Luthor's kind of surrounding cast is really cool too. The Engineer is great. Ultraman's cool, and what they do with him isn't perfect, but I think is neat enough. And the little callbacks we get to the 78 Superman movie with having Eve Tessmacher and Otis in there too, and how they kind of play with those characters was a fun little wink and nod from Gunn. The music is great. I know it's cheating because they're basically just repurposing the John Williams score. The action is great, and just seeing Superman fly around and save people and fight other characters and fight a big freaking monster is just so fun and engaging to watch. I think the special effects work a lot. There's maybe a couple times where you can kind of see the seams a little bit, but overall, I think the CGI and the special effects really hold up And I think that's in part to James Gunn taking the time to, finish production on the movie and have such a long time to finish things up in post, which I know Marvel over the years has gotten criticism for sort of just rushing shit out the door and, putting their VFX people and their SFX people, well, I guess SFX would be sound, not SFX, cut that. The effects are great overall, and I think taking the time to really nail those shows in this and is paid off in this, and I'm hoping that's something that James Gunn kind of carries forward with all the DC projects, whether the ones he's directing or not, just so that they can kind of have that consistently great visual element to them. And I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, so I'll try to keep it vague, but I think the plot of the movie is not the most inventive thing in the world. If you've read Superman comics and seen other Superman movies, there's a lot in here that'll kind of feel familiar, but they do just enough to sort of twist it on its head and twist Superman's backstory, let's say, and some certain little elements that keep things interesting enough and shake it up enough. So it's not exactly the most mind-bending story you've ever seen, but it's good enough and gets the job done and gets everybody where they need to go, and has satisfying character arcs and serves overall in a way as a really good starting point for this universe. The last thing I'll touch on really quickly, and trying to keep it as spoiler free as I can, is Superman himself and what he means and represents and stands for. For a long time now, we haven't really gotten a true depiction of Superman on film. We had the DCEU and Henry Cavill, which, I know people liked. I liked some of those movies. I liked Henry Cavill as Superman and some of that stuff. But it was kind of missing the core of what Superman is. And in a lot of other media, we've had kind of like evil Superman for a long time, which hasn't done the character any favors. We have the Injustice games, which I love, but center on an evil Superman. We've had The Boys and Homelander, which is very clearly supposed to be an evil Superman stand-in. Even My Beloved Invincible with Omni-Man, who's a Superman type character who initially anyways begins very evil and menacing. For a long time we haven't gotten true hope and inspiration Superman. And if there's one thing I could say about this movie as a ringing endorsement, it's that they finally nail that. From every level. They nail it on the Clark level, the Superman level, his parents. We don't get a lot from the Kents in this, but what we do get is so critical to the core of who Superman is and essential to the movie and the story and what they're going for and what Superman's journey is in all this. It's not the stupid, Man of Steel letting Jonathan Kent die in a tornado for some reason. Superman is a good person. He's here to do good, and he wants to do good. That's all he wants to do, and that desire of his drives things in the movie and drives conflict and creates sort of these interesting philosophical questions that the movie attempts to get into, like, can Superman, does he have the authority to just fly into an international conflict and pick a side and try and, intervene? Is that a problem? Is that a good thing? Is that something he should even be doing? And the movie wrestles with that and tackles that, but it sticks true to the core of, Superman's a good person and he just wants to do good and help people. And I won't give away some of the lines or moments where they hammer that home, but one minor example I could think of to give that's not a spoiler is, throughout the movie we see buildings collapsing or a monster stomping around Metropolis or things going wrong, and we get scenes of Superman flying in at the last second and saving people, and those are all great. But there's a moment where a squirrel's about to get crushed by something, and Superman flies in and saves the squirrel, and it's kind of played for a laugh in the moment, but that to me, without getting into the specifics of other scenes that hammer this home, that to me is who this Superman is and gives so much about his character and what he's trying to do and what he wants to do. He's here to help, even if it's the most insignificant thing, as, this little squirrel that's about to get squashed by a monster or whatever. So they nailed, to me, and I think a lot of people, who and what Superman is and who and what Superman should be. And if I could give one last other ringing endorsement to the movie, as soon as I walked out, all I wanted to do was see it again. I want to see this movie again, and more specifically, and I think a good sign for this universe, I want more of this world. I want more of these characters. I can't wait to see this universe's Batman. I can't wait to see their Wonder Woman. And I can't wait to see eventually one day all three of them, you know, the Trinity, interacting together and it being hopefully great and awesome and, you know, true to the comics and true to these characters and not some haphazard trying to catch up to the MCU nonsense that we've had for the past over a decade with the DCEU. So I loved it. So if you haven't already, go see this movie. Hopefully I've somehow in all this rambling talked you into going to see this movie. I think it deserves your time and attention. Even if you're not a Superman fan, if you're somebody who's, you know, maybe a little burnt out on superhero movies and the genre as a whole, I think it's worth your time. I think you'll really like it, hopefully. And hopefully there's a lot more of this to come. Anyways, that's all I got for now. Let me know what you thought of the movie. I'm going to go buy tickets to go watch it again.